Most people think wealth begins with money. But let me tell you something. Wealth doesn't begin in your wallet. It begins in your words. It begins in your thoughts. It begins in your daily philosophy. Poor people talk about bills. The wealthy talk about ideas. Poor people ask, how can I afford this? While the wealthy ask, how can I create this? One group speaks limitation. The other speaks possibility. And here's the secret. Your mind and your mouth are architects of your financial future. If you keep speaking lack, you'll keep living lack. But the moment you start thinking wealth, speaking wealth, and acting wealth, you start attracting wealth. When I first started working, I believed, like many people do, that the key to wealth was putting in more hours. I thought if I could just grind longer, sweat harder, and keep showing up earlier, eventually life would reward me with abundance. But here's what I discovered, and it changed everything for me. Money doesn't reward time. Money rewards value. If wealth were about hours, then the hardest laborers would be the richest people in the world. But we know that's not true. Some work sun up to sundown, yet never escape poverty. Meanwhile, someone else might work fewer hours, but because they've learned how to multiply value, they end up with more wealth, more freedom, and more opportunities. That realization turned my philosophy upside down. Think about it this way. A doctor who spends 10 minutes diagnosing a patient may earn more in that short moment than another person earns working all week. Why? Because the doctor has invested years learning, practicing, and mastering skills that people value highly. The marketplace doesn't pay for sweat. It pays for solutions. It doesn't pay you for the clock. It pays you for the difference you make. That's why the first shift has to happen. In the mind, you stop asking, how many hours must I work? And you begin asking, how much value can I bring? Now, how do you increase value? You grow yourself. You learn. You practice. You refine. I'll give you a personal story. When I was a young man, I was broke and blaming circumstances, blaming wages, blaming everything outside of me. My mentor sat me down and said, don't wish for life to be easier. Wish to be better. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skills. That struck me hard. I realized that my income was a reflection of my philosophy and my skill set, not just my effort. So I got to work, not just at my job, but on myself. I read books. I listened to ideas. I practiced speaking. I developed communication skills because I saw that leaders and communicators could move the marketplace in ways others could not. Over time, those skills began to separate me from the average. The strategy is simple. Shift your focus from hours to skills. Don't get caught up in filling the calendar with endless tasks. Instead, choose one high-value skill and give it attention daily. 20 minutes a day doesn't sound like much, but over time it transforms you. 20 minutes a day reading about investing, and in a year you'll know more than most people around you. 20 minutes a day practicing sales, and you'll become the one who can close deals when others stumble. 20 minutes a day learning leadership, and soon you'll be the one others look to for direction. That's how you elevate your value. You don't need to overhaul your life in one night. You just need to make deposits every single day into the bank of skill and knowledge. The return on that investment is exponential. Eventually, the marketplace will recognize your value. You won't need to beg for raises or chase after money. Money will start finding its way to you because you've become the kind of person the market cannot ignore. So remember this. Wealth doesn't live in the hours. It lives in the value you deliver. If you dedicate yourself to becoming more valuable every day, money will take care of itself. When I was young and broke, I thought the key to financial peace was simply saving money. I would tuck away a few dollars here and there And while it gave me a sense of security, it never really moved me toward freedom. And then I noticed something. The wealthy weren't just savers, they were investors. They didn't stop at putting money away for emergencies. They put their money to work so it could create more money. That was a revelation. Because saving without investing is like storing seeds in a jar. You feel good knowing you have them, but they'll never multiply unless you plant them. The poor save for security. They put money under the mattress or into a bank account that barely grows, and then they live cautiously, hoping nothing wipes it out. But the rich, while they save, do it differently. They save for stability, but they invest for freedom. They build a safety net so they can sleep peacefully, and then they build an asset pool so they can live abundantly. That's the philosophy you must adopt if you want wealth to be more than a dream. The strategy is straightforward. You need both buckets. One is your savings, your cushion, your protection against the storms of life. Because life will deliver those storms. A car breaks down, a medical bill arrives, a business slows down. If you don't have a buffer, one storm can knock you off the path completely. But once that safety net is in place, you must take the second step, investing. That's how you stop trading hours for dollars and start letting dollars work while you sleep. When I was climbing out of debt and learning these lessons, I disciplined myself to split my income into portions. Even when the amounts were small, I made sure 10% went straight to savings, untouched, no excuses. Then another 10% went into investments, things that could grow, whether stocks, a business, or other vehicles of wealth. At first, those amounts seemed insignificant. What could $10 here and $10 there really do? But as the months passed, I saw something remarkable. Discipline compounded just like money. The habit grew stronger. The amounts grew larger, and before long, the foundation of wealth was forming. The practical step for you is this: automate it. Don't leave saving and investing up to willpower. Life is too full of temptations and distractions. Set up systems where 10% of your income automatically moves into savings and another 10% flows into investments. That way, it happens without you having to think about it. It becomes part of your life rhythm, just like eating or sleeping. And here's the beauty. As time goes on, your savings bring you peace, while your investments bring you freedom. You no longer live in fear of emergencies, and you no longer live in dependence on a paycheck alone. Your money has started working, multiplying, and building the future with you. So remember, don't stop at saving like the poor. Learn to invest like the rich. Build your net for safety, but also build your pool for freedom. I learned a long time ago that the words we speak are not just sounds in the air, they are instructions to the mind, and eventually they become blueprints for the life we build. If you listen carefully, you can almost predict someone's financial future just by hearing the language they use every day. Some people are constantly saying, "I can't afford it, I'll never make it, people like me never get ahead," and they wonder why opportunity passes them by. They have programmed their mind with poverty before the marketplace even had a chance to reward them. Words shape belief, and belief shapes results. You cannot walk around speaking lack and expect to live in abundance. I used to be guilty of this myself. In my early years, whenever an opportunity came up, my instinctive response was, I can't afford that seminar. I can't spend money on books. I can't start a business." But what I didn't realize was that every "I can't" was shutting a door that could have changed my life. It wasn't money that kept me from growing. It was my own language. My mentor pointed this out to me. He said, "Don't say I can't afford it. Instead, ask, how can I afford it?" That one shift opened my mind. Suddenly, instead of finality, I had possibility. I can't is a wall. How can I is a door. The strategy here is clear. If you want prosperity, you must start speaking prosperity. This isn't about pretending you're rich when you're broke. It's about training your mind to look for solutions instead of excuses. Language directs focus. When you say, I can't, your brain shuts down. But when you say, how can I, your brain begins working, searching, solving. That's the seed of wealth. Wealth begins when the mind is allowed to explore options instead of closing them off. So here's a practical exercise. Start listening to yourself. Carry a journal, and for a week, record every negative financial phrase you use. Every I can't, every that's impossible, every I'll never, write them down. At the end of the day, look at them, and then rewrite each one into an empowering phrase. Change I can't afford it, into how can I afford it? Change I'll never get ahead, into what must I learn to move ahead? Change I'm stuck into, what new path can I create? This small habit will begin to rewire your thinking. I'll tell you what happens when you shift your language. Doors you didn't see before begin to appear. You start noticing opportunities where once you only saw obstacles. Your belief grows because your words feed it. And with stronger belief, your actions begin to align. And wealth, remember, is the result of actions fueled by the right philosophy. So never forget, your language is a preview of your destiny. Speak the language of prosperity, and soon enough, you will live the reality of prosperity. When I first started making money, I thought the hardest part was earning it. I thought if I could just get more, then everything else would take care of itself. But I soon discovered something sobering. Earning money is one skill, keeping it is another. In fact, I've seen people make fortunes and lose them just as quickly. Not because they lacked opportunity, but because they lacked wisdom in protection. Wealth, once built, must be guarded. Otherwise, it will slip through your fingers like sand. Most fortunes are not lost because someone earned too little. They're lost because someone managed poorly. Poor management can take 1,000 forms. Overspending, risky ventures, careless investments, or even the simple failure to pay attention. Money, left unattended, tends to disappear. It's not enough to have it. You must learn to watch over it, to care for it, to guide it. Wealth is like a garden. Planting the seeds is the first step. Watering them is the second. But if you don't protect it from weeds, storms, and pests, your harvest will never last. The strategy then is very clear. Protect what you build. That means thinking ahead. It means ensuring what needs to be insured so that one accident doesn't erase years of effort. It means diversifying so that one bad season in one area doesn't wipe out everything you own. It means practicing caution, not paranoia, but the kind of wisdom that says, I've worked too hard to gamble it all away on one roll of the dice. I learned this lesson personally when I saw men in my circle who earned a fortune in good times and then lost it all because they didn't prepare for the bad times. Some had no insurance. Some put every dollar into one project, and when it failed, they failed. Some simply spent as fast as they earned, never stopping to think that the seasons change and winter always comes. That's the tragedy of poor management. It isn't lack of opportunity that ruins most people. It's lack of discipline in protection. So the practical step is simple but powerful. Review your assets every single month. Sit down and take inventory. What do I own? Where is my money going? Where is my money at risk? Then ask yourself, how can I reduce unnecessary risk? Is my insurance up to date? Are my investments spread out wisely? Am I living within my means? Or am I spending at the edge of collapse? These questions aren't glamorous, but they're the questions that save fortunes. You see, wealth doesn't just require creation. It requires preservation. It's not enough to climb the mountain. You must also learn how to stay on top without slipping back down. Protecting your wealth is as important as earning it, because what good is building a fortune if you leave it vulnerable to every storm and stumble? Build it, yes, but then guard it fiercely. Wealth, once protected, will serve you for a lifetime. When I was younger, I used to think that money was the most valuable resource. If I could just earn more, everything else would fall into place. But over the years, I discovered something much greater. Money can be lost and regained, but time, once gone, never returns. And here's the truth. Time is the greatest multiplier. Used foolishly, it compounds regret. Used wisely, it compounds wealth. Every decision you make with your time either moves you closer to freedom or further into struggle. Think about it this way. $1 saved and invested can multiply, but only if you give it enough years to grow. In the same way, an hour spent building skills, creating assets, or nurturing relationships multiplies for years into the future. The poor think about money as a single transaction. What can I buy today? The wealthy think about time as an investment. What will this hour yield 10 years from now? That shift in perspective is everything. It changes how you plan your days, how you handle distractions, how you prioritize your work. The strategy is to use your best hours for creation, not consumption. If your sharpest thinking happens in the morning, don't waste it scrolling, gossiping, or watching. Invest those hours in writing, building, designing, studying, or strategizing. Use your mind when it's at its peak to create things that last. Leave consumption for later when your energy's lower. If you spend your best hours consuming what others have created, don't be surprised when your life is ruled by their creations. But if you spend your best hours creating, one day people will consume what you produce, and they'll gladly pay for it. I had to learn this lesson the hard way. There were times in my career when I filled my calendar with meetings, errands, and obligations, thinking I was productive because I was busy. But busyness is not the same as progress. One day, I realized my best energy was being drained on activities that didn't move me forward financially or personally. So I changed my approach. I started guarding my mornings. I delegated the smaller things. I automated what I could, and I invested my best energy into creating material, developing skills, and building assets. That shift changed everything. Over time, those hours compounded into books, speeches, programs, and businesses that continue to pay dividends long after the work was done. The practical step is this. Identify one task this week that you can automate, delegate, or eliminate. Maybe it's paperwork you can hand off, errands you can outsource, or repetitive work you can systemize with technology. Free up that time and reallocate it to wealth-building activities, whether that's learning a new skill, designing a product, or strategizing your next move. The goal isn't just to save time, it's to reinvest time where it multiplies. Remember, wealth is not built in a day, but it is built daily. Each hour you reclaim and reinvest is a seed. And like every seed, given enough seasons, it grows into something far greater than what was planted. Money may flow in and out of your life, but time is the true multiplier. Use it wisely, and it will repay you 100-fold. When I was young and broke, I thought the key to freedom was earning more money. If I could just get a bigger paycheck, life would open up. But as I earned more, I noticed something strange. Sometimes I was still stuck, still stressed, still broke at the end of the month. That's when I realized the truth. It isn't how much you earn, it's what you buy with what you earn. Wealthy people understand a simple rule. Assets buy freedom. Liabilities steal it. An asset is something that pays you, whether you're awake or asleep. A business, a rental property, an investment, a book you've written, or even a stock that pays dividends, these things feed you long after the work is done. Liabilities, on the other hand, look shiny and exciting, but they drain you. The car that loses value the moment you drive it off the lot. The house that costs more in maintenance than it adds in equity. Or the gadgets and luxuries that impress your neighbors but empty your account. One makes you richer, the other makes you poorer. That distinction changes everything. The strategy is to evaluate every purchase through this lens. Does this make me richer or poorer? If you're about to buy something and it only takes money out of your pocket without ever bringing a return, that's a liability. If it adds value, generates income, or increases your capacity to earn, that's an asset. The wealthy train their mind to spot the difference. They know freedom doesn't come from showing off. It comes from owning things that keep paying quietly in the background while life goes on. I remember when I first started earning a decent living, I was tempted to show it, to buy the car, the clothes, the upgrades. But instead, I chose to buy books, to invest in training, to build small businesses, to put money into vehicles that could grow. Those decisions didn't look flashy at the time. No one was impressed by my bookshelf. No one clapped when I bought a rental property instead of a luxury toy. But years later, those assets paid me over and over. They freed up my time, gave me security, and built the lifestyle I always wanted. Meanwhile, I watched others buy liabilities, cars, gadgets, trips they couldn't afford. They looked rich for a season, but they lived broke for a lifetime. The practical step is simple but powerful. Before buying anything, big or small, ask yourself one question. Will this put money in my pocket, or will it take it out? If it takes it out, think twice. If it puts it in, lean forward. This doesn't mean you never buy nice things. It means you buy them at the right time, once your assets can pay for them. Let your money work for you before you let it play for you. Freedom doesn't come from income, it comes from ownership. And the kind of ownership that matters isn't in liabilities that drain you, but in assets that sustain you. If you want freedom, buy what pays you. If you want chains, buy what costs you. The choice is always yours. When I was younger, I thought the safest path was the smartest path. I wanted guarantees. I wanted security. But what I discovered is that the people who insist on safety rarely build anything worth having. The truth is, risk is the price of progress. Fear is the cost of staying broke. Every breakthrough in wealth, in business, in freedom, comes with stepping into the unknown. But the difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck is not whether risk exists, it's how they respond to it. Risk itself is not the enemy. The real enemy is fear. Fear paralyzes, while risk educates. Fear whispers, "Don't try, you might lose." Risk, approached with wisdom, says, "Step forward, you might win, and even if you lose, you'll learn." Wealthy people understand this difference. They don't run from risk, they learn to master it. They calculate, they study, they prepare, and then they step boldly. Poor people let fear dictate their future, and in doing so, they pay the price of regret, which is always more expensive than the price of risk. The strategy here is never to eliminate risk, but to take calculated risk. That means making decisions with knowledge, not emotion. Don't let excitement trick you into jumping too fast. And don't let fear trap you into never moving at all. You've got to learn to ask the right questions. What do I stand to gain? What do I stand to lose? And if I lose, can I survive and try again? With the right preparation, risk becomes less like gambling and more like investing. It's not rolling dice. It's making informed choices with discipline and vision. I remember early in my career when I was offered an opportunity to join a business venture. I had doubts, fears, questions. But instead of letting fear decide, I sat down and asked myself, what's the worst case scenario? I might lose my investment. Could I survive that? Yes. What's the best case scenario? The business works, and it changes my financial future. What's the most likely outcome? Somewhere in the middle, I learn a lot. Maybe make a little, maybe stumble, but gain knowledge. I chose to take the step. That decision didn't just pay me in money, it paid me in education. And that education made me wiser for the next risk and the next, until eventually the odds shifted in my favor. So here's the practical step. Before any financial decision, don't let emotion take the wheel. Sit down with a piece of paper and write 3 things. First, the worst case scenario. Second, the best case scenario. And third, the most likely scenario. If the worst case won't destroy you, and the best case could advance you, and the most likely case still moves you forward, then step in. That's not reckless. That's responsible risk. Progress always has a price, and that price is risk. The question is whether you'll let fear bankrupt you before you even try, or whether you'll master risk and let it pay dividends in knowledge, confidence, and eventually wealth. I learned early on that depending on a single source of income is like standing on one leg. It works for a while, but eventually life will push you and you'll fall. A single paycheck, no matter how good, is fragile. Companies change, economies shift, and opportunities dry up. And when your whole life is leaning on that one source, you live in fear of what might happen if it disappears. Wealth, however, is built on stability, and stability comes from diversification. The wealthy don't just work for money, they make money work for them in multiple directions. The philosophy is simple. Never let your entire future depend on one paycheck. If your life is balanced on only one stream, you're at risk. But if you build multiple streams, you create security. Think of a river that branches out into several streams. If one dries up, the others keep flowing. That's what wealth builders do. They design their lives so that if one income slows, another is still strong. And eventually, it's not just about survival, it's about freedom. Because when you have multiple streams, you're no longer chained to one job, one client. The strategy here is to create different kinds of cash flow. It doesn't mean you need to launch 5 businesses tomorrow. It means you take the income you're earning now and put it to work. Maybe it's a side project. Maybe it's an investment. Maybe it's a piece of real estate. Maybe it's an online venture. The goal isn't to get rich overnight, but to start building additional legs for your financial table so that one weak leg doesn't bring the whole table down. The wealthy understand that. Business income, investment income, and passive income each serve different roles. And the blend of all 3 creates lasting security. I remember when I was working long hours and thought, if only I could get a raise, then life would get better. But when I finally did get a raise, I realized nothing truly changed because my entire future was still tied to one stream. It wasn't until I started a small side venture, something modest at first, that I understood the power of having another flow of money. That little project taught me skills, gave me options, and eventually grew bigger than I expected. The key wasn't the size of the second stream at the start, it was the habit of building it. The practical step is straightforward. Start one small side project that has the potential to grow. It doesn't have to replace your paycheck today, but it could become a lifeline tomorrow. Maybe it's freelancing a skill. Maybe it's writing. Maybe it's creating something people need. Start small, but start consistent. Over time, nurture it until it becomes an asset that works for you. Wealth doesn't come from leaning harder on one paycheck. It comes from creating multiple flows that keep running whether you're working or not. One income may pay the bills, but multiple incomes build the future. I learned early in life that people often say they want to be wealthy, but when you ask them what their net worth is, they look at you with confusion. Imagine a business that never keeps records, never knows its profit or loss, never checks its balance sheet. How long would that business survive? Not long. And yet many people run their personal finances exactly this way. They hope for wealth but never measure it. The truth is simple. You cannot improve what you do not measure. If you don't track your money will quietly slip away. The philosophy is this: track what you treasure. If you say you value financial freedom, then measure it. If you say you value growth, then monitor it. Wealth is not built in mystery, it's built in clarity. Clarity produces discipline, and discipline produces results. When you know exactly where you stand, even if the picture isn't pretty, you take back control. You'll be surprised how quickly progress comes once you start keeping score. Think about sports. Players improve because the scoreboard tells them how they're doing. Without the scoreboard, there's no urgency, no progress, no drive. Your finances need the same scoreboard. The strategy is to keep clear records of your assets, your debts, and your cash flow. Know what's coming in, what's going out, and what you own versus what you owe. Don't rely on memory, because memory is emotional and selective. Numbers don't lie, but feelings often do. And when you're armed with the truth, you make smarter decisions. If you see debt climbing, you know it needs immediate attention. If you see assets growing, you know your seeds are starting to sprout. Tracking doesn't just record the past, it shapes the future. I remember when I first sat down and wrote out what I had and what I owed. It wasn't encouraging at all. In fact, it was humbling. I discovered I had more liabilities than assets, and I felt the weight of it. But here's the important part. The act of writing it down gave me a sense of control. For the first time, I could see the picture clearly. And once I saw it, I began to make decisions differently. Instead of avoiding the truth, I confronted it. And month by month, I watched those numbers shift. What was negative began to move towards zero and eventually into the positive. That progress, small at first, became my fuel. The practical step is simple but powerful. Once a week, update your net worth. Write it down, even if it's negative, especially if it's negative, because that's how you'll see change. Maybe it improves by only a few dollars one week, but that's proof of movement. Over time, those small shifts add up, and when you watch it long enough, your awareness will naturally guide your decisions. You'll think twice before a careless expense, because you know it will show up on your record. You'll feel a sense of satisfaction when you see assets climb, because you've been keeping score. Wealth doesn't grow in confusion, it grows in clarity. Track what you treasure, and you'll treasure what you track. I discovered something early on that completely changed the way I thought about money. Money is not pursued, it is attracted. And what attracts money isn't luck or wishing, it's contribution. Wealth flows toward the people who solve problems, who meet needs, who make life easier or better for others. If you want more, you must become more. And if you want to be paid more, you must learn to serve more. The poor often think money's a mystery, but the truth is very practical. Money follows value. Wherever value is created, compensation will show up sooner or later. The philosophy is that wealth demands contribution. You can't sit back, do the bare minimum, and expect abundance to chase you down. Life doesn't reward intention, it rewards contribution. Think of the farmer who plants seed. He doesn't get a harvest, because he wishes for it. He gets a harvest because he contributes to the soil, to the process, to the work required for growth. Money works the same way. Your paycheck is not a gift. It's a reflection of the problems you've solved for someone else. And your wealth will always be tied to how consistently and how meaningfully you contribute. The strategy, then, is to focus on adding value to people's lives, day in and day out. Don't think only about what you're earning. Think about who you're serving. The marketplace doesn't care about your needs. It cares about your contribution. If you make yourself valuable, people will line up to pay you. If you solve real problems, opportunities will chase you. And the beauty is this: once you focus on contribution, money becomes a byproduct, not the goal. Instead of running after dollars, you'll find dollars running after you, because you've aligned yourself with the law of value. I remember when I was younger, working long hours and feeling frustrated because I wasn't earning what I thought I deserved. I kept asking, why won't they pay me more? And then someone told me, they don't pay you for the hours, they pay you for the value. That hit me hard. From that moment, I stopped asking how I could earn more and started asking how I could contribute more. I learned a new skill. I brought new ideas. I helped solve bigger problems. And without chasing it, my income grew. That shift in perspective was the turning point. The practical step is this: identify one skill you can use to serve others better this month. Maybe it's improving your communication so you can connect with people more deeply. Maybe it's learning a technical skill that solves a pressing problem. Maybe it's sharpening your ability to teach, lead, or create. Don't try to master 10 things at once. Pick one skill, commit to it, and use it to increase your contribution. Over time, those small improvements compound into something extraordinary. Wealth doesn't come to those who sit still, it comes to those who contribute. If you want more in your bank account, put more value into the world. The law is simple. The more you give in service, the more you receive in return. I learned long ago that wealth isn't just about dollars. It's about the energy that creates those dollars. You can have the best opportunities in front of you, but if you're too tired, too distracted, or too drained, you won't see them. Worse, you won't act on them. A tired mind makes poor financial decisions. A worn-out body can't sustain the effort required for success. You can't build wealth on empty. That's why protecting your energy is just as important as protecting your money. If money is a tool for wealth, then energy is the fuel. Without fuel, the finest tool is useless. The philosophy is simple. Protect your energy like you protect your money. Many people carefully lock their wallets, track their accounts, and guard their assets, but they let their energy leak away every day through bad habits, poor rest, or constant distraction. They forget that the sharpest tool they own is their mind, and the strongest engine they have is their body. If you neglect those, no amount of strategy will save you. Wealth is built on clear thinking, good judgment, and consistent action, and all three require energy. The strategy, then, is to balance health, rest, and work so that you can maximize your wealth-building ability. It's not about grinding until you collapse. That's a myth that ruins more futures than it creates. It's about knowing how to pace yourself, how to sharpen the saw, how to recover so you can come back stronger. Think about it. Would you expect a farmer to plant in dry soil with no water and no nourishment? Of course not. Yet many people try to plant seeds of wealth in the barren ground of exhaustion and wonder why nothing grows. When you balance health and work, you create fertile soil where wealth can take root. I remember seasons in my own life when I was working tirelessly, thinking that every extra hour would push me further ahead. But the truth was, the more exhausted I became, the worse my decisions got. I missed opportunities. I wasted money. I made emotional choices instead of logical ones. It wasn't until I learned to slow down, to rest, to take care of my health, that I realized I could actually achieve more in less time because I was sharper, clearer, more creative. Wealth doesn't come from working yourself into the ground. It comes from working with clarity and purpose. The practical step is not complicated, but it's powerful. Commit to at least 7 hours of sleep and daily exercise. Sleep resets the mind, sharpens decision-making, and fuels creativity. Exercise clears the stress, strengthens the body, and keeps your energy flowing. You don't need to become an athlete. Just move your body daily. Protect your energy as you would protect your savings account, because every poor night of sleep, every neglected workout is like withdrawing from your wealth account. If you want to build wealth, protect the fuel that drives it. Guard your energy with the same care you guard your money, because energy, once lost, is harder to replace. A clear, rested, energized mind will always make you richer than a tired, careless one. I learned a long time ago that money is like blood in the body. It needs to circulate, or it begins to clot. If money only comes in and never flows out, it eventually stagnates, and instead of serving you, it begins to control you. Wealth is not meant to sit selfishly. It is meant to move with purpose. That's why one of the greatest principles of money is giving. Not giving out of guilt, not giving out of pressure, but giving out of intention. Because when you give, you remind yourself that money is a tool, not a master. And more than that, you open the door to growth. Growth in perspective, growth in humility, and often growth in opportunity. The philosophy is simple. Give to grow. Money multiplies in the hands of those who know how to use it wisely, and one of the wisest uses is contribution. When you share what you have, you not only help someone else, you expand your own vision. You learn that money has a higher purpose than consumption. It's there to create impact. And the paradox is that the more you give, the more capable you become of receiving. It's as if generosity makes room in your life for abundance to flow back. The strategy is to allocate a portion of your income to giving on a consistent basis, not what's left over at the end of the month. Because if you wait for leftovers, there will always be none. Instead, treat giving as a discipline, a line item in your financial plan. Giving builds humility because it reminds you that wealth is not all about you. It builds perspective because it shifts your focus from scarcity to abundance. And it builds gratitude because when you share, you notice just how much you already have. Many wealthy people I've known attribute their peace not to what they kept, but to what they gave away. I remember when I first began giving. It wasn't easy. At the time, I didn't have much, and the temptation was to hold on tightly to every dollar. But I learned that if you clutch money too hard, it slips through your fingers anyway. So I started small. 5% of what I earned went toward causes I believed in. Some of it went to help family. Some of it went to charity. At first, it didn't seem like much, but what it did for me was priceless. It gave me a sense of purpose with my money. It reminded me that wealth is not measured only by accumulation, but by contribution. And over time, that habit of giving changed the way I approached money altogether. The practical step is simple. Start with 5-10% of your income dedicated to giving. It doesn't matter if it's a little or a lot. What matters is consistency. Support a cause. Help a family member. Contribute to something that matters. Begin where you are with what you have. The amount is not nearly as important as the act, because once you begin, the act reshapes your relationship with money. It teaches you to release, to trust, and to grow. Wealth is not just built by what you keep, it's multiplied by what you give. When you learn to give with purpose, you grow richer in ways money alone could never measure. Wealth is not a destination, it is a discipline. It is built day by day, choice by choice, habit by habit. Remember, money rewards value, not time. It multiplies when protected, it grows when invested, and it flows when given. But above all, it reflects the person you are becoming. So my challenge to you is simple. Think wealth, speak wealth, and build wealth, not just for yourself, but for the lives you will touch along the way. Start today. Take one step, however small, and let it compound into a future of freedom, contribution, and abundance.